Hey guys, it's makeup tutorial time again.
Okay.
Hey hot mess cam.
Oh my god.
Yes!
I've got bipolar disorder. My shit's not in order. I'm overweight.
Very,
I'm
very
always
simple.
late. I've
I
got
use
too
this.
many things to say. I rock
Camera
my
cut out
jeans.
again.
Okay, let's start. 2016, where was I? And the last time I talked to you, I had just moved in with my friend, my good friend of over 12 years. She was basically the love of my life. She was a sweetheart, like any best friend would be. Love of my life, I mean like my best friend. She always had my back. She always was there for me whenever I needed her. I was a single mom, so sometimes you need help. And she was always there, even if it was just to talk or cry or whatever the case may be. We did live a few hours away from each other, so I didn't get to see her much, but we would text or whatever. And then at the end, well, I say the end, but at the end of any of my vlogs, and I apologize for my air conditioning, but it's freaking hot in here, so you're just gonna have to bear. I'll just scream and yell, right? Okay. Anyway, so I moved in with her. Remember, the boys moved out, and it was time for me, and it was a bittersweet thing. But yeah, I moved in with my best friend. We were gonna pretty much Thelma and Louise it. It was March when I moved in, and I had my own room. Everything was fine for the first, I don't know, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I was vlogging, I was creating, and it was at that point where I was trying to figure out if I was going to go back to school. Am I just going to get a job and just tough through it and just live life the way it is, or what? And she basically was telling me, don't get a job. Summer's coming up. I don't want to have to worry about your schedule and my schedule when we want to do things. And she basically said, I got you. I had a little bit of savings, so it didn't really matter to me. Plus, I was still humming and hawing about if I was going to go to school or not, because I really didn't want to continue with the whole like cashiering. I did a whole bunch of years. 10 plus years in the casino, and prior to that I was doing a lot of like financial work that dealt with money and finances and stuff like that. So I was done. I did a little deal with some dental assisting for a while, but unfortunately I couldn't continue with that. That's another story. But anyway, so I was tired. I was tired of working and not enjoying my job. And this is when YouTube was going, and I really enjoyed it, and I was starting to get a little bit of money from YouTube. So that was kind of fun. It was just a pat on the back, nothing to get too crazy excited for, but for a newbie like me, that was pretty exciting. But with all that being said, I moved in, and everything was great, and she wanted, like don't get a job or whatever. That was fine for a while, but then I realized that I'm not contributing to anything. I mean, it only took me like 2 weeks to figure this out. So I figured maybe I should get something, just to bring like for gas money and stuff like that. So I started looking for a job, and she got really pissed off. She was getting really pissy. Wouldn't say, I'd come up from my room, and I was met with a disdained look on her face. And where are you going? I said, I have an interview, and she just kind of looked me up and down like, I wasn't trying to not do what we discussed. I was really feeling guilty about not contributing or putting anything in, or at least being a little bit of more of a substantial person. That's why I continued to do YouTube and post stuff and create stuff, because I was selling a little bit of things, but I still needed something where I can get up and go work or whatever. But nothing bit. And I think it also had to do with my attitude, because I was just like, well, if I don't get the job, I don't get the job. Because she was kind of pissy about it. And then all of a sudden she didn't want to do anything. There was no going out anymore. I started dating a guy, and he lived literally like down the street, and she didn't like that. She was very jealous of that. I don't know why. I'm not quite sure, because I always made it a point to go and see him, and we would go on dates or whatever when she wasn't around. And she would work weird hours, like she would work mornings, you know, from 6 to 2, and then all of a sudden a couple days later she's working 12:30 to 8. So I really never knew when anybody was working anywhere. And mind you, it was her, my friend, her daughter, who was about 19, and then her daughter's boyfriend, that was about the same age as her, 19 or something like that. So everybody had their own room, everybody had their own thing, and then there was a shit ton of friggin' dogs. There's like 3 dogs, and then my dog too, Finny. So yeah, she just was pissed off about me having a guy. She would always try to make it a point to say that I was not including her. Like, I brought the guy over and we hung out, and she liked that. She was mad because she said that he's more her type than mine. I grant her, I mean, I think so, but enjoyed his company, and so we continued to date. But it really just chapped her. It just chapped her a bit. She was not a fan. So I'm not one for somebody to tell me what to do, so I continued to go see him, and then every weekend I would go, or every couple weeks, every couple of weeks I would go to go see my boys, because I lived like 2 hours away from them. So I would go out there and go visit with the boys. It gave me something to do, to drive out and do something. I think I even vlogged that a couple times, but it gave me something to do. With that being said, she was pissy. One time I went on another date with somebody out there, and I didn't tell her because I was dating the other guy. Now, mind you, nothing was exclusive or anything. I was just dating. But it's just a kind of a sticky situation, you know that. So I just didn't really want her. She already had a bad attitude, so I didn't want her to spill the beans or say anything to him, because I didn't want to look like the bad guy, even though I wasn't really doing anything wrong. But anyway, I'd gone out there, went to see my friend, or, you know, went on this date. I went to see my boys first, and it just so happened to be my younger boy's birthday. I went out there, and I celebrated, gave him a present, we did birthday cake or whatever, and then I don't know, you know, kids, when they get about in their 20s, they don't give a rat's about hanging out with their mom. So I was like, okay, well, peace out, I'm gonna go on my date. And so I went on my date and did all that. I didn't get back into town until after about 1 o'clock in the morning. This must have been a Friday, maybe even a Saturday, because I remember not feeling bad about coming in at like 1 o'clock. At the time I was like 42, 40 something, 43. I'm a grown-ass adult, so I want to go on a date with somebody. I don't need to tell her. Well, it just so happened that one of my other good friends was going out for the night. She had asked me to go out, but I already had obligations to go out with the date. But my friend that I was hanging out with, we'll just call her A, because I don't even want to say her name. And this, I'm sure she's watching. Hey girl, hey. But this will be the first time that she'll know that I was not at my friend's house, or my friend's like going out and partying with her like she thought. She thought that I was lying. I was a little bit, but I told her I just went out and hung out with my kids, my son, because it was his birthday weekend. In reality, I went and hung out with my kids, and then they did their own thing, and I went on a date. Well, my girlfriend, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but my girlfriend that was in town where I was at, she was going out, and A thought I was hanging out with her. So she was kind of jealous that you're hanging out with that girl and not with me, kind of thing, which wasn't the case. I wasn't. And I could see where she was going and how it made her kind of feel bad, but it wasn't. I wasn't going out with her. And I came back, so she was pissy about that. She made it a point to bring it up and point that out, and I was like, no, that's not what's going on. But she didn't like that. She was pissed. She's stomping around, getting all pissy. This was the next day, snarling, don't want to do anything. And the thing is that she wouldn't tell me, like, hey, let's go hang out, or you want to go get a drink, or do you want to watch a movie tonight? We can totally hang out. I'm totally cool vegging out with my friend, my girlfriend, you know, like hanging out. I say girlfriend, but I mean my friend. That's a girl. I was totally fine, but I could never just sit around and wait for her because I never knew where she was, and she wouldn't text me. There was this weird kind of push-pull, manipulative situation that I was starting to finally feel that it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but I didn't notice it until it was almost consuming me. She was manipulating me by making me feel bad, and in turn I needed to get a job so I can make some money, so one, I can either get out of there or contribute. There was no like, hey, you want to hang out or do something. I was basically supposed to sit there and wait for her. I was supposed to just sit on my butt and wait and be at her beck and call. And that's no life for me. That was the reason I was there, is to restart, you know. And she even sat me down in the beginning when I first started, saying, I want to be the reason that you're going to school and making something out of yourself. Like, she had tears in her eyes, explaining to me how much she wanted to be a part of me growing. And I loved her for that, because I thought, wow, this woman is very selfless. And I thought that's where it was going to go. But every time I did anything, it pissed her off. I'm a vegetarian, and so whenever I made anything, it's mostly vegetarian so I can eat it, and she'd snub her nose at it. And then all of a sudden I'd make a vegetarian dish with a regular dish and would feed it to the masses that we all lived together, and she would still kind of stick her nose. She'd eat it, but it's a known fact, I don't cook. I'm not a very good cook. So, you know, I was trying, and I mean, it wasn't like nasty or anything, but you know. Anyway, so little things like that. Here are the little things that happen. I'd get up, there'd be stomping all over the floor. You know, I was underneath it was a basement, like bedroom situation, where I had like a living room down there too. But my room was situated right underneath the kitchen, and she didn't stomp when I was up there hanging out with her. I never heard anybody stomping, ever. But as soon as it would be 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's just... Sounds like they move furniture every day. Listen. Every day. No. It's like, it was ridiculous. Like, I didn't understand. She'd come roaring in the house, in the bedroom, and be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing, just hanging out. And then she's like, oh, okay. You know, it was just like, wow. So, you know, then all of a sudden one weekend, nobody would be at the house. Nobody told me where anybody was going. It's not my problem. I don't care. Whatever. But things went. It was like, bitch complained that I was not there, but then would go do things with their family for a whole weekend, or go camping for a whole weekend. Not even include me, which is fine, but it's still kind of rude. And then complained that I may not have been available to go out and hang out with her because I wasn't home. I'm just like, I was home, but you weren't there, so I'm gonna go hang out with the guy I'm dating, right? So we did that. Stomping, just pissy in general whenever I'd ask her to do anything. Now she didn't want to do it. The guy I was dating, we were planning on going, and this is when things started getting a little pissy. So she's bitching that the guy's not coming over anymore. And I'm like, well, he lives down the street, and if I go there, we can do adult things, you know. I don't have to elaborate because my boyfriend's probably watching this, you know. But anyway, I go to his house. She didn't like that. She wanted him to come there and hang out and have a couple drinks there, maybe stay there. And it's just like, why, when we get corralled in a bedroom by ourselves, if we wanted any kind of us time, when we can go to his house? And she didn't like that. So there was one little thing of controlling where she wanted this, and she was pissed when it didn't happen. One time she sat me down and got mad because I never included her with anything, and I'm like, there's nothing to include. I'm hanging out with a guy. You would be a third wheel, basically, without me saying it. But how do you tell somebody, look, you'd be a third wheel, I want to go hang out with a guy I'm dating? Like, you're going to ruin the mood. But if she had said, you know, she was just like, you never made it a point to come hang out with me, I'm feeling neglected and stuff. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that she said that. I still don't think I did, but if she felt that way, then there's a way that I can amend it. And I truly meant, like, hey, I will do what I need to do, but you need to tell me when you have days off. You need to tell me when you're available, because I'm not going to not go see somebody just because you want me to just sit there and wait. Like, no, you got to be fair, you know, and we're all grown-ups. Why do you have to dictate so much? Why do you have to you know, like, freak out so much if I don't get to see you or whatever? Not to mention I lived there. It wasn't like I wasn't going anywhere, right? Anyway, this particular weekend, the guy I was dating and I were going to go watch a UFC fight. And I was under the impression that we were just going to go to like a bar or something and watch it. So I had invited her. Well, I said it, and then she's just like, oh, and I kind of felt bad, so I invited her because I thought it was just he and I going to the bar. And I said, hey, do you want to go with us? Because I think she said she had a guy that she was talking to at the time. And I go, why don't you bring your guy and we'll just go hang out at the bar and watch the UFC if you want to do that. This is me trying to, like, make amends and do things. She's like, cool, that'd be cool, that'd be cool. And I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go. And like, it was 6 or so. So we were gonna try to get there. Let's go hang out with him. We're gonna go get there and find a seat and stuff, because even though it was a few hours later, you know, seats fill up and stuff. So she's like, okay, just text me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, I've got to wait for my guy anyway. Cool. So I get in the car, we go, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that I did a big boo-boo. I was under the impression that we were going to a bar, like one of those, like, sports bars or whatever, to watch the show or the fights. Unfortunately, we were going to one of his friend's house. It was a big to-do. Like, he didn't even mention it. Went to the house, pay-per-view. It was on multiple TVs. Everybody was drinking. I was getting, like, introduced left and right, blah, blah, blah. And I needed to get a hold of her because I wasn't at the bar. So I texted her. I felt like shit, but I was already there. And we were kind of already obligated, and I figured since she's already got her guy coming over anyway, it's not going to be no skin off of her teeth. And once she figures out, because if she knew me, she knew I would never, like, drop the ball. Like, that's kind of the thing that was going on. That she was making me feel like as if I was being an idiot. at all times, and it kind of was offensive. So anyway, I texted her, I told her, hey, change of plans, and I explained to her that it's at so-and-so's house and I can't invite anybody, and she basically made it seem like I stubbed her, and she goes, it's fine, whatever, my guy didn't even show up. So basically, poor me, you canceled on me, my guy is not here, and I'm all by myself. Woe is me. And so I felt like shit. I mean, I had fun, but I felt like shit. The next day I came home, and I saw this big, like, you know, those 22 beers or whatever. It was one of those cheap, crappy beers. That's what her guy drinks, the guy that she was dating at the time. And I said, her daughter was in the kitchen. I'm like, who the heck drinks this? Did your mom drink this? And she's like, no, her guy that came over drank that. And I go, oh, her guy showed up? And she's like, yeah, he was here most of the night. I'm like, oh. So bitch basically lied to make me feel bad because I canceled on her. And it wasn't like I did it on purpose. I truly thought we were going to a bar, and for her to do that extra of, well, you know, woe is me, nobody's here for me, that's kind of rude, and it's unnecessary, you know. It was unnecessary. It made me feel bad, and then come to find out that she's hooting and hollering, hanging out, but gonna go ahead and make sure that I feel bad. That's rude. So I got this chip on my shoulder now. Like, okay, you're stomping around, you're giving me bad looks, you're giving me shit. Then you make me feel bad because I'm not I'm not hanging out with you, but you're not giving me the option to hang out with you because you're either never around, you're at work, or you're not telling me when you will be around. I'm not gonna just sit here and wait. That was my problem. She didn't like that. She basically thought that since I was living there rent-free, I wasn't working, that basically she had full reign on how to control me. Bullshit. You can't do that with friends. That's rude. If you're gonna be a friend, be a friend. Don't. It's stupid. Anyway, so I was a little irritated about that. We got an argument a couple days later about how her car wasn't working. The guy I was dating, he was a mechanic, and that was one of the things that how we met was because my windows weren't working, and he offered to fix them. So he fixed the windows so they would roll up. In Washington, as most of you guys know, it rains a lot, so I really needed those to be up. Because of that, she thought since we were intimate that full reign of any kind of maintenance on a car was his responsibility. I don't know what that meant, but her car was messed up, and so she decided that my guy that I was dating should be responsible to fix the car. And I'm like, I don't understand what that means. Like, what? Well, can't you just have him look at it? And I'm like, okay, well, I can ask him to see if he can look at it. I asked him. He's like, sure. Basically, she wanted to know what was wrong. He went over there. I mean, he's working like X amount of hours. He's tired, and he still comes over, looks at the car, tells her what's wrong with it. That's what she wanted to know. And he's like, okay, cool. And then leaves. But then she's pissed because she's like, well, he's not going to fix it. And I'm like, you asked him to look at it, not fix it. You know, that's a skilled trade. You got to pay people for that. And it kind of sucks, you know. She goes, well, if it was your car, he'd fix it. Maybe. But I also don't ask. I wouldn't ask that. I think dating somebody for, and we were dating, there was no exclusivity. We weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. It sounds like I was always over there, but this is weeks and weeks. So she was pissed. She was pissed that she had a broken car and my car was working. Even though it was a piece of shit, it was still working. And she was pissed. So she had another car that she would drive. The girl had a beat up BMW or whatever, but it worked. Or Mercedes. It was older, 80s, whatever. A had a Suburban. An older one, of course, it was like 80s. And then the guy had a Subaru, and they had just bought he had just bought a little junker truck. So they had cars, but she really wanted the Subaru. She wanted the, look at me, I live in a nice part of town, excuse me, and I have a Subaru, which it smelled like mold, and it was old, and, you know, it was just like, you can be prideful, you know, prideful about what you have, but she was just doing it just to be an ass. There was nothing about whatever, but anyway, she, complained to me that we got many a fights about how the guy I was dating was not helping her out, and I can't do anything if somebody's not going to help you out. I've asked him a couple times, like, hey, is there a way you can kind of see if you can fix it or anything like that, but I cringe just to having to ask, because that's not something I would do. I mean, if we were dating and like exclusive and, you know, there's a future and stuff like that, that might be something I would probably, because I would probably feel more comfortable asking. Anyway, she was mad about that, so she was always busy with that. There was something that was going on with my car, the radiator, something was going on, like it was overheating a little bit, but the radiator was leaking, and he had told me what to do, but I needed to get it fixed sooner or later. And then I forgot certain things, like, can I put just water in, or do I have to put like the antifreeze in? And then I would get snaps like, oh, as soon as you move in, you start acting like a dipshit, you know, and I'm just like, wow, okay. I just want to know. I'm not a mechanic, and I don't know this stuff. And then she would be like, why don't you ask your boyfriend? And I'd be like, okay. This is the woman that was like Jill of all trades. She basically could do anything. So I felt comfortable asking her instead of having to ask a guy that I was dating, you know, like, I don't know. I guess that's just me, but that was kind of stuff. So basically she said, as soon as you moved in, you act like a fucking idiot. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm an idiot. What broke? What was going on? So I moved in March, and by May, I was pretty much done. It was May. She was gone all day. They were gone all day. So I figured, well, it was safe enough for me to go over there and hang out with him. He asked me to go out. I hung out with him. We hung out all night or whatever. The next day, I got up. It was in the afternoon. So we just hung out all day. But I was going to get there late afternoon. It was just down the street. So I was just going to get up there late afternoon, so that way I'd be there when she hopefully came back, and then we can maybe do something, or at least hang out and pal around. So that was the plan. Well, side note, we lived in a outside of town kind of nice area. They did have a gas station right there, but they hiked it up about good 60-70 cents more than what if you went out into town. It wasn't that far out. I mean, when I say town or not, it's just, it was more by the lake, and it was a little further out, whatever. And I had like a quarter of a tank, and since I was just going back and forth to dude's house, it wasn't a big deal. Well, the way my car's hat is, if my nose is tipped in, like the car, if I don't have enough gas, it'll register that I don't have any gas. It wouldn't turn over, and I didn't realize that because I was being stubborn. I was like, I'll just go into town. I'll go into town. I had enough to go into town, but the way it was sitting, it wasn't letting me turn it over, so I was kind of sucky. The guy I dated was in a condo. He didn't have much space, so he didn't have like a gas can or something. So I texted her and I said, hey, do you have a gas can? I know she has a gas can. I know it. She's got everything else. And anything and everything I've said about her, she's totally going to deny it. She will deny it. She will deny it. She will deny it. But I was there, and I know. I know she has a gas can. That's just something that she would have. So I texted her. I said, hey, do you have a gas can? What is it now? Well, she didn't reply back to me for a while. Then I texted her again. Then I called her, and then I texted her, but she wasn't replying. So I was like, fuck it. I didn't want to spend like $15 on a gas can to get $2 of gas. That was my predicament. And then he had a gas can at work, but we would have to drive like 20 minutes out of the way, just just to get it. So it was kind of like, why can't we just go up there? I should have just went up there and looked, but I'm not one of those that's going to dig into your stuff. So I just figured I'd ask her because I hadn't talked to her in a while. And my intention was to go there to hang out with her. So to go back home to hang out with her. So that's what I was going to do. After the phone call, and then I text her, she finally texts back with, what the hell do you want? And I said, do you have a gas can? Which is all the texts that I had. And she's like, no. I go, you don't have a gas can. And she's like, no. She goes, why? I go, because I don't have any gas. And I was trying to explain to her the whole, like, because it's happened to me before, so I know that's what it was. The way the incline was, it wasn't registering, so it wasn't turning over, blah, blah, blah. She decides that she's going to roar in, bang on the door. I come out. She's like, give me the keys. Give me the keys. And I'm just like, okay. For some reason, I'm a fucking idiot, and I don't know how to turn over a car. Okay, so I hand her the keys, and she gets in. She's trying to turn it over like I'm a freaking idiot. No, the car's not going to turn over. I've already tried to turn it over. She hands it back over. I go, I told you. As I'm trying to explain to her the incline bullshit and stuff like that, she's just, eh. She goes, I don't have a gas tank. And I'm like, all right, fine. You know, like, thanks. Like, I don't understand why she made it a point to come over. And then she goes, I'm just more upset that you're not here. You're not making it a point to hang out with me. And I'm like, that's the reason I'm coming home, is so I can hang out with you. She goes, but you're not home now. That's the point. You were not here all night. And I'm like, you weren't either. She goes, yeah, because that was one of the texts. One of the texts said, I just got into town, blah, blah, blah. So it was just like, you're bitching at me because I wasn't home on a Friday, but you just got in town and it's late Saturday. She wasn't computing that. She was saying what she wanted to say and what she was saying, and I believe her. But why are you mad because I wasn't at home? You weren't either. She was mad because I was actually doing something that I wanted to do and she wasn't around. Now you just want me when you need something. I'm like, no, I could go get a gas can. I just didn't want to spend $15 on one. I know you have one. She's being stubborn. She didn't want to help me. And instead of just bringing the fucking gas tank can, she didn't. So I got back in the house, and he, the guy I was hanging out with, he saw it all. It wasn't like I'm exaggerating or making something up. He saw it all. And he's like, what the? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't want to go there. And he's like, well, let's, just hang out here. So I stayed another night. I'm sure that pissed her off. Whoop, pissed her off a lot. The next day I figured I better go. I woke up to him coming back in the house. He had a gas can. He put gas in it, blah, blah, blah. It turned over great, whatever. So I'm like, great, thank you very much. This was about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning when I got ready, and I drove back to the house. Usually I didn't have a house key. I would just put the code in for the garage door would open, and then I would be able to get into the house because the door to the house was always unlocked. Side note, the little boy that lived there, mind you, he paid the rent and did all that stuff, but he decided he was going to get buck with me and tell me that I'm disrespecting him for coming home at 1 o'clock in the morning. But he had just got home from work, so how is that disrespectful? If I'm sleeping and you come home from your swing shift or your graveyard shift, why I'm not bitching. I know there's some of you are like, well, you didn't pay rent, you didn't do anything. It's just a simple common courtesy to act like fucking adults. I don't know. If you're gonna, I can walk in at 1 o'clock in the morning. If this is supposed to be my home, I should have full range to do what I want. I'm not going to tiptoe. I'm not loud. I'm not obnoxious. I don't leave litter or trash. I'm not that person. I'm not that, you know, crazy roommate or something that eats everybody's food and makes a mess and then looks at everybody else like, huh? What? I don't know what I'm doing. Never made a footprint in that thing. I always cleaned up, always made sure. I always tried to put my 2 cents in health. Unfortunately, they like to play the I paid rent, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, he tried to play that little disrespectful bullshit. And I think the reason that he even brought it up is because they could hear me come in with the garage door. Just a side note. So I went home. I went and I put the little code into the garage. I had my dog with me and, you know, like my purse or whatever. And I walked in, shut the garage thing, you know, the door. And I went to open up the door to the house. It was locked.
Locked. And me and Vinny can't get in. It's sort of funny. Yeah.
Convenient, right? It's never locked. Ever. So I know they did it on purpose. Whoever, I mean, A will look at you straight faced and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Huh? What? I have no idea. And now it'll be like, it was so long ago, I don't remember. It's like, fuck off. Anyway, the door's locked. So I recorded it. So I think I have just a little bit of footage of that I'll put in here. So I sat there and I texted her and no reply. I text her daughter, no reply. I text the guy I was hanging out with, and he's like, just come back. He knew the bullshit I was dealing with, and he's like, just come back. And I was just like, ugh, you know, because I don't want to have to bring some random, I mean, he wasn't random, but you know what I mean, like, he wasn't my boyfriend, he was just a guy I was hanging out with, and he kind of got sopped into it, because I didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, I could have went back to where my boys were, but all my stuff was there and everything. So, I went back and I just simmered because I was pissed. Like, why are you doing this? A couple hours later, I texted her and I said something like, is the door unlocked yet? She's like, door's always been unlocked. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, that kind of bullshit. And I'm like, okay. By then, I was done. I got a hold of my ex-husband and asked him if I could stay at his. And he said, yeah. He's pretty much family, but he said, yeah. So I was done. That meant that any kind of planning that I had to do anything, it was from mid-March to late May, March, April, May. So it was only, what, maybe 2 weeks, 2 months. And I was still trying to figure out, but I had all this drama going on that I really didn't get to figure out what I needed to do or what I was going to do. I mean, I did make an attempt to go on a couple job interviews and stuff like that, but, you know, bullshit got in the way. I was done. So now that I figured out that I can go to my ex-husband's, my friend, basically, family, I was done. So I drove all the way down to my storage. I got the boxes, because I had a lot of stuff at the house. And I got boxes, and she had already told me the door was locked. So I had kept my dog, well, I had brought the dog in with me, and then I had a couple boxes, like flat boxes, you know how they break down. And I had them, they were big and stuff. And I'm only like 5'1", so it's kind of hard to bring them in. So I tried to open up the door. It was locked, like the front door. And I knocked because I could see him moving around. She just opens the door and looks at me. And then walks away. And I'm like, okay. So I struggle with my boxes. I go through the house, go downstairs, and I'm taping everything up and I'm putting everything in. She runs in about 2 minutes later and says, I want you to fuck out in an hour. It took me a long time to get that stuff in there. It's not gonna, I can't go up and down these stairs into the car or whatever. So I ended up, I was like, oh, I'm way ahead of you. I'm way ahead of you. Like, this is it. Like, I was so pissed. So I was trying to situate things, like what I really needed. All my craft stuff, all the stuff for hot mess pieces and stuff, that was going into storage. So I was trying to get everything that was going to be in storage in the car so I can go drop it off. And I left all the stuff that I really needed, like clothes and all that stuff. I left that there to pack later. And so I needed to get the TV because I had a really big TV. I have a really big TV that I needed it. And I asked him, the guy I was hanging out with, if he can come over and help me put it in the car. And so I can take it into the storage. And he's like, yeah. Well, once she found out that he was there, because she went and hid in her bedroom. They all ended up hiding in their rooms while I was going up and down the stairs trying to pack my car up. And I have like a medium-sized SUV, so I was able to put a lot of it in there, but I couldn't get all of it in there. And so I got him there as soon as she had heard that somebody else was in the house. We were pushing the car, the TV in the back of the car so I can take it. And then all of a sudden she walks out with my dog, puts the dog in the car and says, we're leaving, you'll have to come and get the rest of your stuff tomorrow. And I'm just like, what the and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you left my purse in there, I need my purse. So she went and got my purse. And I'm like, what the fuck? All I wanted was to get out of there and just be done with her. I just wanted to get my stuff and get out of there. But she was making it more of a drama. I just like, I don't want to deal with you. I just want my stuff and I want out. That's it. I'm not asking for anything else. Just let me have my stuff. So I went back to his house. Poor guy. Went back to the house. Well, I went and dropped off the stuff at the storage and I went back to the house fuming. He was kind of like, sorry, this is, he's kind of caught in between, but he was definitely a savior at that moment. The next day I got up bright and early because that's what they do. They like to get up bright and early, and nobody was there. They changed the code on the garage so I couldn't get in. I text her, nothing. I text the daughter, the guy, everybody. Nobody was replying. It was just like bullshit. Here's a side note and a little story. There was the way they're living, they're kind of in a cul-de-sac, but they're behind another house. And for some reason, they didn't like this gentleman that was like living in the front part of the property. I don't know why. I think they had this older RV in their parking lot, and this particular area was really nice, so they had their own RV parking lot in a specific spot, and it was kind of breaking the regulations and the rules to have the RV in front of the house. And they thought this guy was the one that tattled on them because they kept on getting these like tickets or something like that, and they were like, this guy's blah, blah, blah. Well, this poor guy, he's an older gentleman, not like crazy older, like 55, and he took pride in his lawn, and he had lots of flowers and stuff going on, as you do. And then one time I remember, this is when everything was good, one time I remember the kid that was living there, like he's 19, 20, it kind of looked, what I could see, it kind of looked like he was peeing in the back, and I'm just like, what the heck is he doing? So he comes walking out, and he's got this jug with a little spray thing, and I'm just like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, just watering the neighbor's plants. And and then he turns it around, it's like weed killer or something. I'm like, why are you doing that? And he's just like, that's the asshole that got us in trouble about the RV. And I'm like, oh wow, is it? And he's like, well, we think so. And so it was just all this bullshit. And the poor guy's plant kept on dying or whatever. Anyway, as I'm sitting there waiting, because I want to just get my shit, I want to be done with this drama, I don't want to deal with it. Not to mention, I don't want to stay over at dude's house anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, I just want to go. And I want my shit. So I went over to the neighbor's house, and I'm like, look, this is what's going on. We've got a lot of bullshit going on, some drama. And I kind of wanted somebody else to kind of know what was going on. And oh, FYI, they think that you're the one that reported them about the RV, so they've been spraying weed killer all over your plants, just a heads up. And poor guy, he was just like, that I don't even know what's going on. You know, like he was just like, I don't even know what's going on. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm just pissed off. Some of you might ask, well, why didn't you say anything until after people were being all pissy? One, I live there. I'm not going to like rock the boat. That's their business. I don't want to deal with it. Whatever. I just didn't want to deal with anything. It was like bullshit all the time like that. It was always constant bullshit. She would go to a store and all of a sudden she'd have stuff in her hand that she didn't buy. And I'm just like, geez. But she's my friend. I had to just deal with it. Those are the kind of things that I dealt with that I really didn't know until I moved in. But I know it sounds bad, but I'm not going to fault somebody for doing something if I've been their friend for X amount of years. Now that I'm finally seeing it, it was just like, oh, you know, like, just don't do it around me, or don't do it when I'm there, or whatever. Like, you're a grown adult. I can't tell you what to do. Oh, there's Finny. He's going to bark at all the dogs. So, yeah, I didn't say anything because I lived there, and I don't want drama. If you're doing whatever you're doing, I'm going to pull away. I'm not going to sit there and try to tell you anything because I don't want to get dragged in. That's basically why. But all bets are off when you start fucking with me and stuff. And I really wanted to just warn them, like, hey, just careful, because obviously now I'm getting shit and I'm finally realizing that she's not the friend or the person that I thought she was. And then he was like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, you know, sorry about that. We exchanged phone numbers so that way we had each other's numbers just in case. And I had told him the bullshit that was going on with me trying to leave and all this stuff, and now she's not here. So finally, they were all still on my Facebook, and I decided to Facebook Live because, as you do. So I Facebook Lived, and I had a lot of you on there that were like, fuck that bitch, and she needs to give you your stuff, and blah, 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 just hyping me up. And I was kind of pissed, but I was trying to, like, have proof that I'm not doing anything, I just want my stuff. And so, finally she sees it. My niece stepped up and started messaging both of them like, hey, my aunt's out there, she needs her shit. So all of a sudden they come roaring in. Her daughter texted me first and said, my mom's had a doctor's appointment. Your mom's been at a doctor's appointment for 5 hours? Really? 5 hours? So yeah, so she comes roaring in and was like, I fucking told you I'd come in when I have time. I'm like, look, I just want my stuff. Just let me have my stuff, and I'm out of your life for the rest of it, so you don't have to worry about anything. Just let me have my stuff. Don't tell me to come over if you're not going to be here. Like, I'm in limbo until I get my shit. So, she was just like, eh. Well, now she don't want me to come in. I'll get your stuff for you. Most of it was packed by them, but a lot of it was like in hangers and stuff. So here they are just throwing it on the front porch, you know, and then shoving it in the truck. And I'm just like, you know, and I'm recording all of it. I'm recording her yelling and screaming and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, okay. And everybody's like, this is bullshit. Just get your shit and leave. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry I'm cussing so much, but that's just the way it is. I'm a sailor at heart. Hey, hey, hey. But anyway, so, yeah. She threw all my stuff. I banged on the door after it was all done. She shoved everything out, shut the door, and locked it. And they have this big oval like window in the door, so I can see them moving around and watching TV and doing whatever. And I'm knocking on the door because there's a couple pieces that I'm missing, and like food in the fridge. I'm a vegetarian, so there's special food that I bought that they won't eat, and I'm just like, at least let me have it since I bought it. And they wouldn't answer the door. They wouldn't answer it. They wouldn't do nothing. So again, I was shoving everything in there. I got most of everything that needed to go to the storage, and then I put a couple more things in the car. I had to leave some things like my TV, my printer, like my vanity mirror, all my clothes, mostly all my clothes, and like I had $2,000 worth of finger polish. I had about $7,000 sitting on that porch, but we lived in a certain spot where it was in the woods, and it wasn't like a passerby off the road would see it. It wasn't exposed like that, so there's no way somebody just drove in, because it was in. You have to go into a cul-de-sac and everything, so it was in deep. It wasn't like somebody was just driving by and took the stuff. Anyway, so I took my happy ass to my storage. It took me about an hour or so to unpack everything and put it in the storage and get everything in there and settled and all this other jazz. And while I was doing it, I was looking at my phone, and I realized that somebody's trying to hack into my Facebook. They have changed my password and everything, so I couldn't get in. Finally had to change it back, and when I got back, I realized that all the videos, all the Facebook Lives and all that I had on there, they deleted them. And they deleted a lot of other things on my Facebook. And it showed that the person that was doing it was the guy that lived there. He's the one that changed it to his like phone number and everything. So they were able to get in